Genealogy Tea with the Lady of Archived History, where we live in the past and spill the tea on all things genealogy related. Hello and welcome to another episode of Genealogy Tea. Have you ever been curious about how your ancestors may have lived? Have you heard family stories that you've wondered if they were true or not? Maybe you were just curious but have been afraid to ask your living relatives. In this episode, we are going to be discussing 6 reasons why oral histories and genealogy are so important, and why you should ask your living relatives if you are curious about your own family's oral histories. Oral histories are a valuable primary source in genealogy research that is often underutilized. Often people don't realize that all genealogy research starts with oral history. I will also be sharing why oral history is important to me personally, so let's get started. First, a major reason why oral histories are important is because when a family member passes away, a bit of your family history dies with them. Have you ever wondered what part of your family history may have been lost? Do you wish you had knew more or had the opportunity to ask a loved one who has passed on? Not all histories are recorded or documented, so if oral histories are not documented, the cycle of valuable information getting lost continues, which is why it matters so much to take the time and ask while you still can. Second, even though oral histories and families can be like a game of telephone and isn't always accurate, these stories can still provide tidbits of information on where you should search next. Maybe these stories are giving you leads on different types of records you could look for. An example of this would be like my grandpa. From our oral histories, I know that he was the last family member that was born in the barn. Does that mean that he was actually born in a barn? No. But it does mean that he was born at home. So the key to finding his birthplace would be finding the farm or homestead that his families had owned rather than finding the hospital information. You never know which little detail could end up being the key to tracing your ancestors back in time. Next, a different angle would be to look at oral histories that are about actual historical events that took place. This can give a fresh perspective to an event that the history books or records available can't provide. It shed light on their lived experiences and how they lived their lives, and even how these events may have shaped your family's patterns and habits. In some cases, like my own, oral history is all I have. My grandmother, who loves to share her stories to my luck, knows her parents' names, and that is it. On her dad's side, I was able to trace it, but on her mother's line, we have no information whatsoever. So when she talks about her mother's upbringing and life, I'm always doing my best to take notes and remember which tidbits jumped out at me that could possibly lead me in the direction of her ancestors. This is what I consider my life's work, as I will be working on it for a while. But because I have the oral histories on her line, I cherish each and every one of her stories. 4, an important thing to recognize is that for some cultures, their histories have been passed down orally, and it is their custom not to document it. A few examples of this would be the Native Americans in North America, some African cultures, and even some Muslim cultures don't pass their stories down documents, they do it through oral histories. There may be some documenting that they do, but they rely heavily on the oral histories rather than the documentation. If those oral histories are not documented, there is a chance that all of those stories and their culture could eventually be lost for good. So preserving it is something that is very important to genealogists, as it could be crucial depending on what line you are working on. 5. One more thing about oral histories is that it is very humanizing. It creates an emotional connection to our loved ones who came before us. It paints a more complete picture of their life and their experiences that you cannot find anywhere else. This is what makes oral history so valuable. If you have asked your relatives about your family's oral histories, leave me a comment and let me know what the most interesting tidbit of information was that you found. Lastly, knowing your family's oral histories can help you understand your loved ones and family dynamic better. Why do they tick the way they do? What family patterns are the result of an event? Are those habits being passed down still? Oral history helped me find some answers to these questions and helped me gain a deeper understanding and appreciation for my family and all that they have gone through. At the end of the day, that is one of the most important aspects about learning oral histories, to gain a deeper understanding and appreciation. If a bit of history dies with every person, then why should we try to preserve it? It is estimated that 97% of the world's knowledge and history is unknown or forgotten. Let that sink in. Out of all the history in the world, what we know only makes up 3% of the world's history. This was shocking to me. Documenting oral histories is one of the main ways to preserve and know more about someone's family or even their culture, values, histories, and personal lived experiences that those individuals had. It makes our family history a little more unique and valuable and helps build connections with our ancestors. If you are speaking to a living relative, it can bring you closer as well. So after hearing why oral history is so important, are you going to call your relatives to hear your family's unique oral histories? Let's start the motto for oral history to just talk about it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please let me know by subscribing. Until next time, this has been another episode of Genealogy Tea.